So we are back again, and we are continuing in explaining different kinds of web application attacks, just to realize how much these attacks could be severe and could cause a huge impact in any organization that could be subject to it. So our next attack is called the SQL injection attack, and from the name or from as the name, SQL or SQL is a database language. So SQL is considered as fourth generation programming language, I believe, and SQL stand for structured query language. Any database now is using SQL in writing and communicating with the database. So in case of Windows operation, for example, if you want to open a file or go to a certain directory or do a kind of directory listing, you may write dir. In order to go to a certain directory, you may select cd or change directory. In order to check where you are in Linux, you can write pwd. At the end, in order to deal with Windows files or to deal with all of these locations and so on, you need to follow a special language or a special parameters in order to deal with the file share. This is exactly what SQL language looks like. Structured query language is a kind of way to deal with the database. So in order to ask for a certain value from the database, you are sending a request using SQL query, asking it to extract or reveal the value of a certain database table. In order to delete database value, you need to send SQL command to delete. To add, you send the SQL. At the end, SQL is a method to deal with the databases, and it is used by Microsoft SQL databases as well as Oracle. So at the behind or at the back end of any website, we mentioned before, we have the front end and we have the back end. And in back end, we could find the database layer. And in fact, any website should rely on a database. For example, if this website provides username and password for login. So in order to validate if this username or password are correct, we need to send our request to the database layer. And database will ensure that the password and username combination are correct or not correct. So any website will have a kind of database. And what happens in SQL injection attacks that we found a kind of vulnerability in the web application itself or in the front end allows the hacker to directly communicate with the database using structured query language queries or using SQL commands. So hacker can be able to delete database tables, remove database tables, alter or change database values, show the content of database tables, and all of this stuff, as long as he managed to find a field that can allow him to communicate directly with the database. Clear? What do we mean by injection word here is that we are allowed to inject commands related to SQL. Inject, so we are injecting in this web form commands that can allow us to communicate with SQL database directly. So let's together see how SQL injection attacks could look like in real life. So again, on our platform, which is Contra here, we will go back and we'll look for. So, however, you may ask what Contra benefit from such free demo. Contra is a platform, as I understand, it provides like application security training. So it is a training organization and it created this way just to illustrate for developers why do they need to care about security. So they provide like demo labs just to show off their capabilities, and it is amazing, by the way. So we will open the WASP top 10 and we will select SQL injection attacks, and it is the first lab from the right on the first row as we can see here. So we will open SQL injection attack or SQL injection related lab, and again this lab provides first to you like introduction. So what we are going to deal with is an application or a website called Carvibe. It is an application or a website that provides like car leasing service. And Alice, which is the CTO of this organization, engaged cybersecurity consultant or white hat hacker or ethical hacker called Bob to perform penetration testing. Penetration testing is a security assessment that we do on web application or mobile application or our network to ensure that our network is well secured and well hardened. And the result of penetration testing can be used after then to cover or fix these issues, which will lead at the end in more secure environment and infrastructure. So in case you don't know what is the pen testing is, this website will provide you as you are going through this scenario with the necessary details about each step. So it defines here what is the pen testing. So we will click next, and then it will give you like an overview about what we have in this website. So we have a button called get discount. We have another button called unsubscribe. So maybe for SQL injection attack and the cross-site scripting attack, we have a common thing here, which is hackers are looking for like an input field where we can insert data. And this field can be found on get discount. When I click get discount, I may be asked to enter my mobile phone number so they can send me a code or a promo code. Or I can also insert my data in the unsubscribe button, which the lab is instructing me to open. So in the unsubscribe button, in unsubscribe, it is usually an option that your website or website are providing to users in order to write their own email addresses to get unsubscribed from the newsletters of this website, to stop getting information about current advertisement, current offers, and so on. So Bob, which is the penetration tester, will try his luck by trying to insert his email in the unsubscribe button, and then he will click submit. What will happen next is that Bob will activate on his own machine a web application testing tool such as the Proxy. If you can remember, the Proxy and the Purpose Suite are tools that can help you in automating the web application testing. Do you remember this? What does Purpose Suite and the Proxy do in reality is, while you are testing a specific website, you added an input. This input will be transferred to HTML format or HTTP request and will be sent to the backend. What happened with Purpose Suite and the Proxy that this tool can intercept this request before it leaves your own machine, and it gives you an option to modify this request. Fine. So you cannot, in this form, for example, which is about writing the email address, you can only write your email address like this way. Fine. But if you try to enter a SQL command, the website or this input field could give you a warning and tell you that only value accepted is an email address, while you seem to not write an email address to me. So to overcome this point, the penetration tester will add this value first, then will click submit, and then he will activate this tool on his own device. And this tool will intercept the request. Can I show you how to intercept the request? I will activate this tool, which is OASP Proxy or OASP Zap tool, by clicking here on the activation button, and then I will open my Firefox browser, which I used for web app pen testing, and then I will go to the settings of the web browser, and then I will search for the proxy settings. Then I will configure my local host or my own machine as the proxy. We remember what was the IP address of 127.0.0.1. It is the loopback address. As you can see, all of information are linked to each other. So, and then I will click OK. After then, whenever I open any web browser from my website, this request will be intercepted by this proxy tool. Can you see here the request, how it looks like? So I can modify whatever I need in this request. So instead of writing a language is in US, I could see AR, Arabic for Egypt. And then I could send this request to the website. So I can send it this way. Then I will get the response. So although the request was sent to request the page in English language, but it came back for me in Arabic. Because while the request was leaving my browser, I intercepted this request and I created another request, or in other words, I modified this request. Fine. So instead of asking you to install this type of proxy, which can allow you to intercept the request, while dealing with this simulation lab, you will get these two boxes here, which essentially give you the same option that you got with this tool. So what you have been intercepted here will appear in this section from the screen. And here you will record how the website will respond to you, which appeared also as well here in this part, I believe, or in this, I'm not sure which section in the response here. So here is the request and here is the response. So again, when I activate the tool and when I open back my website once again here, the request will be intercepted, or let's say will appear here. I can modify the request in the way I want, and then I will forward this request to the website. Then I could get like a response. So the response could appear in some place which I'm unable to identify right now. However, the same is what you are seeing now here on the screen. Here is the request and here is the response. So when you click the submit, the request has been intercepted, and as you can find here, you have the email that you just written. And when you click analyze request, it will provide you information about what does all of this mean. You will click next, and then you as a developer, or you as testing the application, you found that there is a kind of string that you can send through the request. So here another explanation for what is the back end code looks like. And as you can see here, the back end code, or the HTML page of this website, has like a structured query language statement written inside it. So it says that select email from user email where whatever the email address that is provided by the user. So this part in the HTML code of this website rely on whatever will be inputted by the user himself. So whatever parameter that user will send using the email variable, it will be captured and will be added to this field instead of the word email. Okay, so when I click next, you will start in doing the SQL injection attack by you will intercept the request and you will write the email. Then you will add this icon, which is apostrophe. Can you see this symbol? This symbol in SQL language allow you to write whatever SQL command that you need. As you can see here, the line is being updated in the code itself. You usually, as a hacker, you don't see the code, but this tool provide you information or give you like information about what will appear from the back-end perspective. So when you forward this request as it is, you will receive a response from the server that telling you that error, you have an error in your what? SQL syntax, which means you are dealing with the database layer directly. You send a command and the database responded that this is invalid command, which means you are successfully dealing with the database that are hosting this application data. So you are now sure that you, by sending a request from the front end, you can receive a response directly from your database or from this website database. Can you get this? So now when you analyze a code, you will understand what is happening in background. And again, we are not explaining every line, but you have an option to do this lab by yourself and understand more and more how application in background looks like and where is the issue. So let's go to the actual attack. As we proved that we can communicate with the database directly, then we can send whatever commands that we need to send to this database, such as understand what is the database version. And based on this information, we can check if this version of database has a kind of vulnerability that can be exploited, or know what is the content of this database. If this database include all of the registered email of users, I can exfiltrate this data. So I can know the email addresses of all the customers of this particular database or particular application. So I will repeat the steps once again. I will send the request, I will intercept it, and instead of sending the username or just the apostrophe icon, I added the apostrophe once again, and after then I sent a SQL command, and this SQL command aim to understand what is the version of this database. Is it SQL, Oracle, MS SQL, PostgreSQL? What is the user that this database is running with? And what is the, let's say, what is the name of the database? So all of this command aim to get this information. So I believe I read something wrong here, so I will delete all of it. I can, in case I missed something, I can go back one step and return back in case the website is not responsive. So I will copy this code as it is, and I will forward it. And I will get a response from the database as well. Say that the email, this is the version of the database, this is the username, this is the local IP address of the database, and this is the name of database itself. So I am in a database called subscribers. So usually the subscribers database include list of username who are subscribed to this application. So when we do analyzing of the code, it will also give you how it looks from backend. Then I will click next. And then I will, as I know what is the name of database table, I can extract data from this table of database, or at least understand what is the schema. So again, I will write the email, then the apostrophe, which allow me to send additional command after this email address. Then I will select the table name from the schema table database to understand what is the different database tables name. I could have a table name related to customers, credit card, usernames, administrators, subscribers, and all of this stuff. So by making this request, I could understand that I have like a schema table called subscriber or car vibe subscribers. So this is the name of the table. So the next step is I will do another action to select emails from this table. So I will send the command which will select a field called email from a table called the car vibe subscriber. And when I forward this request, I will extract all email addresses that are registered to car vibe. And then we can get announcement on the internet that database table of LinkedIn has been leaked out because one of LinkedIn websites or subdomains was including this vulnerability, and it was connected by somehow by the master database of this website. And as a result, I could be subject to data leakage. You remember when I said to you that some cyber attacks could lead in leaking the hash value of passwords or username and passwords? That can be happen by SQL injection attack. So again, when you go next, you will get like a description for what was the reason for the attack and what is the protective measures that you can do in order to protect your application, and what was the reason for the SQL injection. So it will tell you clearly that the reason is your HTML or your front end accept or have a kind of SQL command that accept whatever is being inserted by the system clients. So if you are a developer, you will be this info will be useful. If not, just understand that in order to mitigate SQL injection command, you need to make a kind of prepared statement, like a proxy between what user is inputting and what should be sent by the database. The input that user is providing should be subject to a kind of validation, a kind of translation. So whenever the user go to the database and send the command like this, it will not be understandable because the application or the front end itself or the back end at the beginning will ensure that nobody can communicate with the database in a direct way. That's called stored procedures or prepared or parameterized query, by the way. Okay. Okay. Uh, I believe that concludes the part of web application security. And what do we need also to understand that in order to protect our systems from web-based attacks, we need to keep the developers aware about web attacks. They need to have a secure coding practices that are in place. They should have like a process or like a hardening document for their web application. So while they are writing the code, they need to realize or they need to consider the requirement or the let's say the guidelines which is mentioned in similar documents such as the ASVS application security verification standard. We need to consider the WAF as a security layer that can protect web application from different attacks such as SQL injection, cross-site scripting, and these all various techniques. And by the way, the goal of the WAF is to compensate the weakness in the application. So if the web developer wrote his code in a very secure way, the goal of the WAF will just for additional assurance. But if you have your code written in a very secure way, the WAF will not be needed, by the way. So whenever you have a website that is published online, this website should be placed in a segment inside your network called the DMZ. So DMZ or the demilitarized zone is a special zone in your network where you place all public services, such as you have a website and you need to make this website available for the public. So you place this website in a special zone called the DMZ. The criteria or the reason why we need to have a DMZ that any server that will be published to the public will be a potential target for cyber attacks, correct? So by having these public servers isolated in a specific zone and by having a firewall before it and firewall behind it, which means DMZ is a location that is placed between two firewalls, for example. So we can have like a way to detect the attack if happened, if we got one of these servers hacked. The hacker can impact or exploit other servers in the same segment, but when he or she will try to reach the internal network, the firewall here may reduce the possibility that it can breach our internal network as well. Fine. So I believe that's to conclude our day today.